Okay, let's dive in. When most of us think about the Aztecs, you get this picture, right? This kind of incredible contrast. You've got these amazing achievements, the architecture,
That's
Tenochtitlan.
incredible sophistication.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then existing right alongside that is this image of, well, widespread human sacrifice. It's often painted with these really broad, sensational strokes.
And that image is so powerful, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
largely shaped by, the historical accounts we got from the Spanish conquerors.
Right.
And it creates this immediate tension. How do you square that circle?
Yeah.
Sophistication and, well, what looks like brutality.
Precisely. And that's really why we're doing this deep dive today. We're tackling human sacrifice among the Aztecs using this stack of sources you've brought together.
Yeah.
And the mission here, it isn't just to repeat those sensational stories. It's to try and get past the surface horror, understand the history, the practice, and crucially, the why. What was going on behind it based on this material.
And I think it's vital to start by acknowledging where a lot of our initial understanding comes from.
The Spanish lens.
Right. The Spanish who conquered them. Their reports, naturally, they had a pretty clear interest in portraying the Aztecs as barbaric. It helped justify what they were doing.
Oh, absolutely. That bias is key. But as the sources show, and importantly, as archaeology has confirmed, human sacrifice wasn't just Spanish propaganda, was it?
No, not at all. Finds like the hundreds of skulls they unearthed at the Templo Mayor site.
In modern Mexico City.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's stark, undeniable evidence.
Yeah.
This is a real practice. So we're dealing with something that happened, but our view of it is filtered through those potentially biased accounts.
Okay, so a real practice, confirmed by archaeology, but with that historical filter.
Precisely. And it's also worth remembering, the Aztecs didn't just invent this out of nowhere.
Right, it was a Mesoamerican thing.
Yeah, it had a long history in the region. Cultures like the Maya, the Toltecs before them, they practiced forms of it too.
Yeah. So why do the Aztecs get this specific reputation? Why are they seen as the most bloodthirsty, I suppose?
Well, part of it might be the scale the Spanish reported. The sources mention these huge numbers, estimates sometimes up to, 20,000 sacrifices a year?
Which is, a staggering number, even if it's debated.
It is debated, heavily. But the perception, certainly from the Spanish side, was that it was immense. That's kind of stuck.
And who are the victims, primarily? The sources seem to point towards captured warriors.
Mostly, yes.
Yeah.
Prisoners of war from other groups were a major source. But it wasn't only men. Women and even children were sacrificed in certain rituals for specific reasons.
Okay, so if it wasn't just random violence and it was part of this older tradition, why the intensity? Why the scale, or at least the perceived scale?
This is where the sources get really, really fascinating. They point towards a world that was fundamentally driven by ritual.
By their calendars.
Incredibly precise calendars, yeah. And by this deep, constant connection to their gods. It wasn't just appeasement in the simple sense.
It was built right into how they saw the universe, their cosmology.
Exactly. Their whole belief system was kind of rooted in this terrifying idea that the cosmos itself was fragile. It could end.
And that's tied to the 52-year cycle.
That's central. They lived with this constant underlying fear that at the end of every 52-year cycle, the world could literally just stop, cease to exist.
Wow.
And they believed the gods themselves had sacrificed their own blood, their own essence, way back in the mythical past as the legend of the five suns to create the world, to get the sun moving.
Ah, so human sacrifice was paying it back, a reciprocal thing.
That's the core idea, yeah. It was seen as absolutely necessary, a way to lend the gods strength, keep the sun on his path, nourish humanity, and critically, make sure the world didn't end when that 52-year clock ran out.
So there was this deep conviction, according to the sources, that without enough sacrifice, everything would just collapse.
Utterly collapse.
Yeah.
And this constant need to provide that energy to give back was structured by their calendar.
Not 12 months like ours.
No, 18 months. And each month had its own specific festival, dedicated usually to a particular god or group of gods.
And these festivals weren't just parties, right? They involved specific offerings.
Right, tied directly to nature, to agriculture, to time itself. And yes, often involving human sacrifices designed to appease and strengthen that month's deity, ensuring they had enough power, especially looking toward the end of that big 52-year cycle.
Okay, so the why is rooted in this cosmic fear, this obligation, this need to keep the universe running. Let's get into how that actually played out, the specific rituals for some of the main gods mentioned in the sources.
Yeah, because this is where you see the beliefs manifested in, in often very graphic detail.
And it's important, like you said, to see these not just as, horrific acts, but as windows into what they believed was necessary. Difficult details, but key to understanding.
Absolutely essential.
Okay, let's start with Huitzilopochtli, the big one. God of the sun, god of warfare. Hugely important, right? Especially at the Templo Mayor.
Immensely important. Worshipped right there at the top of the Great Temple in Tenochtitlan. He had, I think, 4 major festivals dedicated to him each year.
And the ritual for him, that's probably the image most people have, isn't it? The heart sacrifice.
It's certainly the most iconic, as described in the accounts. The victim, often a captured warrior, would be painted blue, maybe adorned in the god's colors, laid out on a specific sacrificial stone.
And then the priest.
The priest would make an incision, reach into the chest, and yes, famously, rip out the still beating heart.
Still beating.
And hold it up towards the sun. An offering of life force, essentially.
That detail, the beating heart, it really speaks to capturing that life force at its absolute peak, doesn't it? What happened to the body afterwards?
After the heart was offered, the body was typically pushed or rolled down the steep steps of the pyramid.
And its fate?
It varied, according to the sources. Sometimes cremated. Often, though, it was given to the warrior who had originally captured that victim in battle.
So it wasn't just discarded, it was part of the reward system.
In a way, yes. Capturing sacrifices was a major path to advancement for warriors. And the sources mention, challenging details for us, like parts of the body potentially being sent to important figures, or even consumed in a ritual context by the warrior and his family. Cannibalism, yes, but highly ritualized.
So the religious act, military success, social status, it's all interwoven.
Deeply interwoven. Then you have another really powerful god, Tezcatlipoca, god of the night, sorcery, destiny. Kind of an unpredictable, all-powerful figure.
And his sacrifices took different forms. One was like a gladiatorial combat.
Yes, that's one type described. A victim may be tethered, given deliberately inferior weapons, maybe just a feathered club against warriors with obsidian blades.
Facing elite jaguar or eagle knights.
Exactly. It was a form of ritualized execution, certainly, but it allowed for a display of courage, even facing impossible odds. But the other ritual for Tezcatlipoca, that one's perhaps even more striking.
The young man. The one chosen to live as the god for a whole year.
That's the one. A young man, chosen apparently for his physical perfection, would literally become the living embodiment, the Exipla of Tezcatlipoca for a full year.
Wow. Treated like a god.
Showered with luxury. Dressed in fine clothes, taught courtly manners, given attendance, women. He'd wander the city streets playing a flute, revered by everyone.
A whole year of that. Knowing what was coming.
Exactly. It's a different kind of sacrifice, isn't it? Not just the moment of death, but the dedication of a whole year of life, culminating in this grand feast held in his honor.
And then?
At the end of the year, he'd walk calmly up the steps of Tezcatlipoca's temple, breaking his flutes one by one on each step, symbols of his earthly pleasures. At the top, he'd willingly surrender himself to the priests for the heart sacrifice.
And immediately they'd choose the next one.
The cycle continued. As soon as one incarnation died, the search began for the next young man to take his place.
Incredible. Okay, let's move to Xuchitl, the fire god. Sometimes seen as a version of the older god. Huitzilopochtli, fire, obviously crucial.
Absolutely central. And Xuchitl featured in major festivals like Izcalli, and maybe most importantly, the new fire ceremony.
The one at the end of the 52-year cycle.
The big one, yeah. But first, Izcalli involved 10 days of prep, sacrifices of animals, feasting, and then human sacrifices linked to fire.
And this is where it gets particularly gruesome in the descriptions.
Yes. Accounts talk about prisoners or captives being, burned alongside animal offerings after a feast. They'd be thrown onto a large pyre or into a brazier.
But not just burned to death.
The detail that stands out in some accounts is that they were supposedly pulled out just before dying from the flames, still alive, but horrifically burned.
And then their hearts were removed. Why? What was the thinking behind that specific cruelty?
It's hard to know for sure, but it might suggest a belief that the god required the victim to be brought to the very brink by his element, fire. Maybe capturing the essence of transformation or suffering at its peak before the final offering of the heart. The goal ultimately was appeasing the fire god, preventing destructive fires or plagues.
And that fire element was also absolutely key in the new fire ceremony, preventing the world's end.
Critically important. At the end of the 52 years, as uncertainty gripped everyone, priests and a specially chosen victim would journey to a specific volcanic peak.
Mount Hoogzaklen, sometimes called Star Hill.
Right. They'd wait, watching the night sky for a specific astronomical sign, the Pleiades constellation, actually reaching its zenith at midnight. If it appeared, it meant the world was granted another cycle.
And that was the signal for the sacrifice.
Yes. At that precise moment, the victim's heart was extracted. And then, in the open chest cavity, using a fire drill, they would kindle a new fire.
Lighting a fire in the chest. I mean, the symbolism.
Incredibly potent. A direct link. Human life offered to ensure the continuation of cosmic fire, of the sun, of time itself.
And that fire was then shared.
Yes. Runners would take torches lit from that first fire down the mountain and race back to Tenochtitlan. They'd relight the main temple fires, and from there, fire would be distributed to rekindle every hearth in the city, symbolizing the renewal of life and the world for another 52 years. All thanks to that sacrifice.
Wow. Okay, shifting now. Tlaloc, the rain god. Water, fertility, also incredibly important.
Hugely. Agriculture depended on him.
And the sacrifices for Tlaloc, these are particularly tough to talk about. They involved children.
They did. The sources are quite clear on this. The belief seems to have been that if Tlaloc wasn't appeased with child sacrifices, he'd withhold the rain, causing drought, crop failure, famine, maybe even unleash floods or disease.
And there's a chilling detail in the sources about what Tlaloc supposedly wanted from these children.
Yes. The belief was that the god required the children's tears. Their weeping was thought to symbolize or even magically compel the falling rain.
And tragically, archaeological finds, like the remains of those 42 children at the Great Pyramid, seem to show signs that they suffered injuries before death.
Yes. It sadly aligns with historical accounts, suggesting that methods might have been used to make the children cry before the sacrifice, fulfilling that perceived divine requirement. It's incredibly difficult to contemplate.
Very. Accounts like Bernardino de Sahagín's writing in the 16th century. His Florentine Codex describes children sometimes being bought from poor mothers and sacrificed in a series of feasts throughout the dry season, specific ceremonies like Tosastantli and Huitisasli essentially continuing until the rains finally began.
It just underscores the depth of their conviction, how deeply they believed in this necessary reciprocal relationship, even when it involved the most vulnerable.
Okay, one more major figure from the sources. Totec, our Lord the Flayed One, god of rebirth, agriculture, seasons.
All those, yes. Also associated with goldsmiths, craftsmen. He represented the cycle of death and renewal, like a seed breaking open or, well, skin being shed.
And his name, the Flayed One, points directly to the main ritual for his festival, Takaksipehualisli.
It does. This ritual is perhaps the most visually disturbing described. For apparently 40 days leading up to the main festival, one chosen victim each day might live a life of luxury, impersonating the god.
Similar to the Tezcatlipoca ritual.
A similar pattern, yeah. But the climax for Totec was flaying. The victim's skin was carefully removed, often it's suggested while they were still alive.
Flayed, and then the skin was worn.
Yes. The sources describe priests or other designated individuals donning the flayed skin, wearing it like a gruesome suit, sometimes for up to 20 days.
Why? What did that represent?
It symbolized the god himself, the outer husk being shed to reveal new life underneath, like the earth shedding its dry covering for new growth, or a snake shedding its skin. Those wearing the skins would move through the city, sometimes engaging in mock battles, collecting gifts, a walking symbol of renewal through death.
And the original victims, the ones who were flayed.
After the flaying, their hearts were removed. And again, sources suggest their bodies might have been dismembered for ritual consumption.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard to process from our perspective. It really pushes the boundaries of our modern understanding. But again, if you connect these specific, horrifying acts back to the underlying belief system.
This intense conviction.
Yeah, that they had to feed the gods, feed the sun, keep the cosmos from collapsing, prevent the literal end of their world. It helps maybe not to excuse it and to see it as something other than just random, senseless cruelty.
It was rooted in this profound, terrifying view of the universe and their place within it.
A cosmology that demanded these actions, in their view.
So understanding that deep existential fear, that feeling of responsibility for maintaining the entire cosmic balance through these sacrifices, it does shift the perspective a bit, doesn't it? Beyond just immediate, simple judgment.
It shows how different cultures grapple with the huge questions, life, death, the cycles of nature, the unknown, and create systems of belief around them, even when those practices seem utterly alien, even horrific to us now.
It's a powerful reminder of just how diverse human belief and experience can be, and the Well, the lengths people have gone to based on how they understood the forces governing their world.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've really taken a deep dive here based on these sources. We've looked at the historical context, the Spanish influence, the crucial archaeological confirmation.
And then dug into the complex why, the cosmology, the fear of cosmic collapse, the 52-year cycle, the reciprocal relationship of the gods.
And we've explored the specific, often deeply challenging details of the rituals for key deities like Huitzilopochtli, Tezcatlipoca, Xiuhtlacutli, Tlaloc, and Xipe Totec.
We've seen how their worldview really seemed to demand these profound and, yes, often brutal offerings as a way to keep their world literally turning over.
Right. So here's maybe a thought to leave you, the listener, with. We've talked about understanding the motivation, this Aztec belief system that compelled them to sacrifice to maintain the cosmos, to prevent annihilation. Does understanding that why, that deep-seated cultural and religious conviction, fundamentally change how we should evaluate the practice morally from our standpoint today?
Or does the inherent brutality of the acts themselves, especially when you consider the sacrifices of children, the descriptions of flame, the deliberate infliction of suffering, does that create an absolute moral line that the cultural context, the why, simply can't cross?
It really throws into sharp relief that challenge of how we look back, how we judge historical actions through our own modern lens, doesn't it? Something to think about.